Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Focused at 40.
Focus at 40.
I am Kathy Goodall.
And I am Genesis Etienne.
And we have a very special guest with us today. But before we get into that, let us tell you who we are in case you're joining us for the first time. So I am, again, Kathy Goodall. I am a marketing consultant. I am a leadership and growth coach and trainer. And I am truly excited to be a part of the duo Focused at 40.
So excited to see you, babe. I miss you. I am Genesis Etienne. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I am a marriage and family therapist. I am a podcaster, a mommy, a sociologist. And I am really excited today as well because we have another therapist with us, guys. I'm so excited about our guest this week because we went to school together, right? So we kind of come from the same, school of thought. But he is an incredible therapist, a marriage and family therapist. And I'd like to introduce you guys to Kevin Gibson. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, how are you? I'm glad to be here. I'm so excited. I'm so excited
too.
Kevin, thank you again for saying yes. We're super happy to have you. We've been getting a lot of feedback about the last couple of episodes, and it's interesting because most of our feedback has come from men. And so we wanted to bring somebody that not only is a man, but that has some experience with some of the topics and the conversations that we've started, to shed a little more light on it. I feel like there's just so much to talk about, and I know we won't be able to get through all of it in one episode, but I figure, let's just start.
So I think that the main place that we want to start with is tell us about the work that you do, right? So that way we kind of know more or less how to, take the conversation. We'd really like to get a good idea on what are some of the things that men are dealing with in your practice as a therapist. And then we're going to talk about the relationship part of that afterwards. But tell us a little bit about your work.
Okay. Once again, I'm Kevin Gibson. I'm so excited to be here. This conversation is much needed. In our community, there's a void where men can just come and just express themselves and, not feel judged, but also just be able to have that emotional release. But during the day, I work at a charter school. I'm the dean of students at a charter school and the mental health therapist there. And so you can imagine I have an interesting day during the day.
Wow.
So a lot of times I'm doing individual therapy, but sometimes I'm disciplining kids at the same time. And so I'm doing that. I do a lot of family therapy at work as well. And then in the evenings and weekends, I do private practice for individuals and couples and families, predominantly from the Black community.
Nice.
And so, a lot of times in the private practice, a lot of the issues when men are coming, it's because they come to a crossroad. So they come where they have exhausted everything that they know how to do. And meaning, they're in a relationship and they're not getting along with their girlfriend or their wife. And the wife is threatening to leave. But then so they're like, okay, I need to figure out what is going on. And so a lot of times people, and particularly Black men, they have never been taught how to just be expressive emotionally, right? And so what we do is we express it in a way that most men are naturally inclined to do, which is anger. And so we express it in anger versus being vulnerable and saying, I'm upset right now. I'm sad. Like what you said hurt my feelings. We don't say that. We just take it out. We get angry and we curse and we just.
Kevin, men don't have feelings. What are we talking about here?
If we don't have feelings, then I don't know what to say, because if I'm at a bar and I'm watching a game, okay, I'm an Eagles fan, so we're undefeated. So every time I go to the Eagles bar to watch the game,
made sure to say that they're undefeated.
I had to throw that in there, right? So every time I go to the bar, when they score, I'm excited, I'm happy. When they don't score, they turn the ball over, I'm pissed. You know what I mean? And so I express that emotion, and I look around, and all the men in the bar are expressing the same exact emotions. And so we have emotions, but it's just what we put value in showing emotions in. And so what it says to me is that if we can put value in a football team or basketball team, something that we can't even tangibly, we're not making money off of that unless we're betting. We're not doing, that we're not a part of that organization. But what does that say when we can't express our emotions to our partner, our girlfriend, our wife. It says that we have this misconstrued emotions where we can't really express that because it's deemed as weak, or it's deemed as effeminate, it's deemed as whatever it is, but I think the biggest thing is true masculinity says that I can show my emotions and still be strong at the same time.
I love that. I think that we're living in a time where true masculinity is like constantly in question, right? You can't be too masculine because you're toxic. And if you're not, masculine enough, you're this or you're that. And so you're kind of constantly having to negotiate what masculinity even looks like. I liked when you said that men come to you when they're kind of at their wits' end, when they've exhausted everything that they know how to do. Right. And know how to do, I think, was the key there, because I don't know that men know how to do a lot of things. Right. I don't know that, especially men of color. We deal with a largely Caribbean audience, which again, it throws it even more, into difficulty, because there's not only the Black part, but there's this other Caribbean cultural component that adds to that. But I don't know that men know. Like, how did you, and not to get too personal, but how did you know growing up? Did you have good examples of how men could emote and how men communicated and things like that? Or did you have to learn that on your own?
You know what? I saw some good examples, but then I saw bad examples as well. And so it wasn't until like I was old enough to be able to understand that, I could see my parents arguing and they not talk to each other for a week or so, or whatever the case may be. Or I saw a healthy relationship where my uncle and aunt, they were able to be expressive with each other. And so obviously you learn from those that are closest to you, right? Your family of origin, Jen, you know this. And so there's things that are taught to you, whether you inherently know this, or there's some things that you just don't know. And so there's some things that if you're in a house and it's burning, you're going to come out smelling like smoke. And 9 times out of 10, you just don't know you smell like smoke, but everybody around you does. And so these are things that we learn. And so as I got older and you get in relationships and you see things that don't work, and then you see things that work, then it's like, maybe I should have done this a bit differently. And so I think you have to be self-aware that like we all are flawed. We all have different things that we went through as children and adolescents that impact us until us as adulthood. But the problem is that if you're not self-aware of that, you will go through life and then thinking that everybody else is the problem. And then sometimes you just need to reflect and say, man, I messed up. I need to figure this thing out. And so that's excuse me. And that's where I was as, I got older, I matured, and then, I'm still maturing. I still, I learn things about myself every day that I didn't know. And so the biggest thing is that I have to forever be learning.
Yeah, I think that's important, being self-aware, and we talk about it all the time, getting to know ourselves and understanding who we are and where we need to work on. I mean, for a long time, I was in relationship after relationship, and what it helped me to do is to figure out what I don't want. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until I stopped to realize what a healthy relationship looks like, because I didn't really know what that was.
Therapy.
First of all, understanding what a healthy relationship looks like and what I know God designed for my life, even for myself outside of my relationship. You have to be whole before you can be in a relationship with somebody anyway. And I wasn't that. And then, like Jen said, therapy was a big deal for me in helping me to, because I've always been self-aware, but I have always chosen not to deal with the things that I was aware of. So learning to express emotion, like you talked about a while ago, in a meaningful way, and to be able to communicate that was something that I had to be willing to be vulnerable, to learn, and to do. And I can imagine if it was hard for me, it can't be something that's easy for men, right? So how do we, well, first I want you to tell us, where can men go to actually get that help? And two, if, it's something that is foreign to them, and, how do we approach a situation? Maybe for some of us, it's our friends or our partners that can help them to understand the importance of mental health without them thinking about it from the perspective of, I'm crazy.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that, well, 2 things. The first thing is that there's still a stigma as it relates to men and mental health. Now, granted that we've come a long way from, maybe just even 5 years ago, but my head's not in the sand either to know that we still have a long way to go. And so I think just normalizing that we all struggle with in some way, shape, or form with some mental health challenges, whether that be, stress, depression, or anxiety, these things, excuse me, these things are not foreign to just anyone. We all are impacted by that some way, shape, or form. And so I think first, being able to recognize that we all, men and women, we deal with it. Okay. And so it's just not a woman's issue. It's just not a man's issue. It's a human issue. And so when we understand that it's a human issue, we can put our guard down just a little bit. And so
Absolutely.
when we're able to first recognize that, but then also where we need to some improvements in is that we need to, have men that, especially men of color, Caribbean men, that they need to be able to sit down and look at someone that looks like them. Now, interestingly enough, that takes away so much anxiety that a lot of people don't even realize it. Even though, let's say for an example, I have a good friend of mine. He's a therapist too. We're both Black, we're both men, we're both married, but we have two different experiences in life, and so, but even though we have two different experiences in life, that we can relate to each other just by our outer appearance. And we can assume
Literally the outer, sure.
yeah, and we can assume that because of the outer experience, that they can understand some of the things that we're dealing with on the, internally. And so being able to get, men to say, he's like, hey, listen, there are men out there that look like you that can sometimes understand what you may be dealing with in your marriage, your relationship, in your singleness, understanding that sometimes it's hard to be alone. All of these many different things, whatever issues, presenting issues that it is. And so my first thing is a lot of times I always give you referrals out, but even if I'm like just doing a workshop or something, just the basic generic website, I send people to Psychology Today, right? I send them there because for one, you can filter whatever it is you want. I want a man. I want somebody that's Black. I want somebody that's Christian. I want somebody that deals with CBT. I want somebody that focuses, and then it
Personalized. It's personalized. Yeah.
it personalizes it. And so you're saying to yourself is, wow, this person is just for me. If that makes sense. And so even if that person is just not for me, it's just like, primary care doctor. Sometimes you can go and then it's like, I don't like this doctor.
Find another one.
I'm going to find another one. And so
Yeah.
I tell people, you're not married to the first person that you meet. Because I've had, two therapists. The first therapist, I was like, wasn't what I needed. The second one I was like, dude, this is what I really was looking for and what I really needed. And so Psychology Today, for one, I give people just one just to start out with, because that's just the basic one. Then also too, you will be able to see if you have insurance, they can take your insurance too. And so you
Absolutely.
don't necessarily have to pay out of pocket. But the biggest thing is that if you're willing to take that step, you'll find the help. I
Definitely.
guarantee it may be the first therapist you find, it may be the second one. And therapy is just not for crazy people. Let me just say that, because I think the biggest thing is that we think that we're crazy. If you think that, then everybody in the world is crazy, right? We have some form of what we call dysfunction. And so the dysfunction necessarily 9 times out of 10 is not our fault. It came from some trauma that was passed down to us, or something that we experienced directly or indirectly. And so a lot of times the trauma that we experience indirectly impacts us in ways that we don't even know. And the only way that you're able to find that out is sitting down with somebody who's insightful, who's licensed, who's clinically trained. If you want a Christian therapist, you can do that. And we're able to sit down and we're able to see things that you're not able to see, because you would just listen to you talk, and then it's like, oh, you have all these dangling fruit that are there. And then it's like, well, I see the fruit of this, but then we need to get down to the seed.
The juice.
Where it come from. Yeah.
The juice. Let's get some juice out that fruit, right?
Yeah.
So Genesis talked about trauma last week for a little, and I think that one of the challenges that all of us have, especially from our communities, is that we experience trauma and we can't identify that it is a traumatic experience because it's our norm.
Yeah.
So how do you then help somebody to identify something as traumatic that is normal for them?
Right. So like I like, it was interesting. I watched your live, I think it was last week,
Yeah.
when you all were talking about like you coming from a Caribbean background, when it is just normal for, Caribbean men to just engage in, affairs and all, different
Yes.
things. That's
Yeah.
that's that's normal for them. And so, but a lot of times people, what you do, it's like I seen everybody else do that, so I'm going to do that, but not knowing that you are intentionally doing that. You subconsciously, there were certain things that were passed down that you didn't get affirmed affirmation, some emotional thing that you're chasing. And then you just think that it's just something that everybody else does, but then it is like, no, it's something that you need to deal with personally. And so, certain things like that is like when things, we can think about, let's say we can use that as an example. We can use, shutting down as something, a lot of times when we get frustrated, we shut down.
Big time. That's me.
And that is, it's a trauma response.
Yeah.
And it stems from something that happened to us, whether we know it or whether we don't know it. And then the thing is that we have to go back and revisit that and attribute meaning to it, right? And so I'll give you two examples. I had two clients, maybe around, it was during the pandemic. One client they both were getting bullied. Like the ultimate thing was in middle school, they were getting bullied. And so one guy, just felt like he was just this weak, inadequate person. The other person, he just he was just overly aggressive, and he didn't know why. It was because he didn't want anybody to do him the way that, in his relationship, in his businesses, he's had businesses that failed because he was just too aggressive. Anytime he felt as though someone was trying to, debilitate him, it was
Yeah.
his trauma response, right? And so you have to go back and revisit that. And so in that moment, you got to say, what was I feeling, or what did I say about myself in that moment of me getting bullied, right? And it's like, oh, I was this weak person. Aha, there it is. So now you're living life as though you are a weak person. And so the things that we experience from 0 to 16, if we didn't have the appropriate or a healthy meaning to what happened to us, can impact us until
Behavior.
until adulthood. And so, and then the longer that we do it, the harder it is for us to go back and change that, because it becomes habit.
And then that transfers to the next generation, or to
Yeah.
the people that you use, that people that see you as an example. So it's
Right.
definitely important that we are able to go to a therapist to talk about what's going on, even pre-verbal stuff. People don't understand how much trauma happens before you're even a child that's old enough to speak. Sometimes we can understand, I had a client who couldn't figure out why they were wetting their bed, all until they were 15. And it was because they had been abused as a 3-year-old, and they had no idea how to ever even discuss that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important, I think. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation. Kevin, I have a second question, and it is, what is the major mental health concern that you're seeing in your practice with men? Is it anxiety? Is it interpersonal stuff? Is it depression? What do you find that men are mostly coming to therapy for?
It's actually depression. And
Yeah.
and so a lot of times what Jen, this depression can be displayed in many different
Absolutely.
many different ways. And so a lot of times it is, men have shut down. They're aggressive, they're angry, they're quick tempered, they're easily to just give up on a relationship, give up on a career, give up on a job, give up on just life in general. It's like, all right, cool, I'll just start a new one. And so people don't understand is that they're thinking like, oh, I just have an issue with, not finishing things out. But no, it's because the root cause of that is whatever happened to you caused you to become, to feel depressed, to become depressed. And so when that happens is, when you start to break it down and start to show them symptoms of that, you start to withdraw from everybody. You just like, you know what, I'm alone. I just want to be by myself. I'm going to do things. I'm doing me. That's my favorite. That's the favorite thing is like, I'm getting away from everybody. I'm doing me. And so I'm like, okay, so let's
Doing you is not sitting on your couch, right?
I'm like, yeah, I say, let's break that down. And so I think the biggest thing is that, and the reason is, one, when you hold things in and you're not able to get it out, that's just you and your thoughts. And even as a therapist, me and my thoughts, that's it's bad. I need to get those thoughts out,
It's bad.
because if I hold it in, I am my own worst enemy, right? So I'm not going to step out of myself 9 times out of 10 to be able to say, like, Kev, you're tripping, or Kev, you need to do that. I need an outside party to be able to allow, sometimes, to help me to be able to recognize, like, the way you're thinking is not healthy.
Right.
The way that you're responding to things is not healthy. The way that even though you've done this your whole life, it's still not healthy. And so if I'm not able to communicate like how I'm genuinely feeling, then I just suppress it,
Shut down.
suppress it, I shut down, and then eventually it comes out. And then the smallest thing, you put something on the top of the iceberg, and then boom, you explode, and you have no idea why. It's because you continue to hold things in and not express it. The biggest,
You've reached your threshold,
you
right?
have to be able to get that out. And so that's why I even encourage just friends, like, even if you're not seeing a therapist, like, I encourage that. But what I do encourage is, like, man, let somebody know when you're battling with something. Like, just call, like, hey man, listen, I don't need you to say anything. I just need to get this off my chest, man. I'm at work, they're not promoting me, they're not doing this, and it's causing me to become frustrated. You know what I mean? Like, just being able to release it says, man, I'm okay, I'm safe. I'm emotionally aware that I need to get it out, and I'm able to just express it. 9 times out of 10, Jen, it's a lot of times if you're just sitting down with a client, and then they're just getting it out. And then sometimes you don't even say anything, but just paraphrase what they said. Then they're like, man, I feel so much better. And the reality of it is, they just needed that outlet. They needed that outlet to be able to, let somebody from a non-biased perspective to be able to just listen and hear them out. Now, obviously, that's not what therapy in general is. Just, sometimes that's just what it is. But then a lot of times, no, you putting in that work. You may leave therapy and be pissed at your therapist, like, I'm not coming back, But then,
did I strike a chord? Did I strike something that hurt a little bit? Good. Right.
So, and you need that sometimes in order to grow. Because
definitely,
if you don't have anybody that's in your inner circle that's going to check you, and your therapist is checking you, knowing that you have the option to leave, you might not come back, then that means, oh, this person must really be telling me the truth.
Absolutely.
As the only non-therapist in this little triangle.
For a little while, but whatever.
I think it's important for us to just highlight a couple of things. One, we have a choice, and that choice is to make a decision not to continue to live in the same way that we have been living, in the dysfunction, in that space that we know is not good for us. Two, we can get help, and we can get help from anywhere. Now we live in a digital age, so it is accessible. You talked about psychology today. You could literally Google and find so many online platforms. If you don't want to go into an office, you can do therapy right on your phone or on your computer. And like Kevin said, you can choose. It's just like finding a physical, what you call it, doctor, any kind of doctor, right? Exactly, primary care physician. You can choose your therapist. And guys, take the time to do the paperwork. I remember when I was looking for my therapist, I went to BetterHelp, and I did exactly what you said. I took the time and I filled out that paperwork because I knew how important it was for me to have somebody that I could relate to. Jen and I have a friend who lives in Barbados. He came to me, and I was talking to him about my therapist and how great she was. He went on BetterHelp, and he had gone through 3 therapists already, but he also didn't take the time to fill out the paperwork to get a therapist that was right for him. I gave him my therapist, and now he's hooked to her. But it's important. It's important, guys, to put in the work, because you get out of it what you put into it, right? And it's like Kevin and Genesis said, your therapist, one, you'll be able to identify things challenges that you didn't even know you had. I went to therapy for one thing and it was something completely different that I ended up
Completely
uncovering.
different.
But
Completely
it
different.
starts the healing process. There's so many things to uncover that you don't even recognize are issues because it's a part of our routine. It's something that we've become accustomed to, which is why we need the help of people that are trained in this industry to help us to identify the problem areas and, more importantly, manage them, deal with them, and move forward.
I think it's an incredible time to be, not only a therapist, but certainly a male therapist of color, right? I feel like there's more opportunities ever, and there's a bigger need and a greater need than ever, especially in the political and social and racial landscape that we're all in right now, and seeing how that is affecting people. So I also urge people, to find the help that you need. The last question that I'm going to have for Kev is basically, Kev, how do you find that mental health is impacting relationships? When men are not getting the help that they need, what does that do to the family? And you can speak quickly on it. But I know that has to be an issue that men are dealing with. I feel like home is such an extra added. It's a beautiful place, but it's also an additional form of stress for men who have to come home to be fathers or to be, husbands, or to have these certain roles. How is it, if you're not dealing with your mental health, how is that affecting the family, do you find?
Yeah, I think, that's a brilliant question, because I think the reality of it is your individual challenges impact every part of your life. If you're married, if you're in a relationship, it impacts your family of origin, your brothers, your sisters, your children. It impacts everyone. Why? Because everything is connected. And so if you're in a relationship, if you're in a just any family dynamic, you're not isolated by yourself. And so because you're not isolated by yourself, living on an island, anybody that's connected to you is going to be impacted, including your friends, right? And so you just have to understand that what I deal with and what I don't deal with is going to be important. It is going to cause some impact. And so, like, a lot of times when I'm dealing with couples, and this, and when you're dealing with couples, majority of the couples issues stem from individual challenges.
Sure.
They stem from individual challenges that then you come together, and then now it is just it's coming to the surface of
Right.
what you were experiencing. And so understanding that, and I think, and it's difficult too. Let me just say this. I think it's difficult too in the times that we're living in, is that because men are deemed, that we're told that we're supposed to be strong, right? And what that looks like is sometimes kind of distorted through the lens of what we think strong is. Strong does not mean that at all times I have to be this macho dude. There's some certain times where I have to be vulnerable. There are certain times that I may cry. But that does not mean that I'm not strong. What it says is that I'm strong enough to understand where I am emotionally, or where I am physically, or where I am spiritually, where I am emotionally, where I am just psychologically. When I'm able to recognize that, that is when I'm in my strongest point. If I know that I need help, I am going to seek out help. If I know that I need to talk to my girlfriend or talk to my wife about what I'm dealing with. Now, obviously, you don't talk about everything, because at the same time, there's certain things that you need to talk, may need to talk outside of that, or you may not know what you're going to do, but, for the sake of the relationship and making sure that your girlfriend or your wife knows, like, oh, he knows what he's doing. There are certain things that you talk to your wife about, like, your challenges that you're having, but there's sometimes that you don't. And you just have to find that balance. But we're in a place where we're not taught how to do that, right? And so we just go with what we know. And then so when we go with what we know, and then it impacts the family, it impacts my job, then now I'm being reprimanded, or now I'm being looked at as like, you need to do something, you need to change this. Like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I think a large part of what people are doing is they're just doing what they know how to do.
Absolutely.
When you're doing what you know how to do, you just have to unlearn some of the things that you thought were normal, thought that were healthy, and then just get a different perspective. And I think once that happens, and we're understanding that if we're leading, right? If we're leading everything in the household, it starts and it ends with us, right? And so if that is the case, then that puts a lot of pressure on us too. And so we have
Yes.
to be able to say, you know what, I'm not doing this by myself. But at the end of the day, like, when the areas where I'm weak, this is where I have you to help me to
There you go.
self up.
So communication, right?
That's it. That is the most important key of everything. If you're able to communicate your needs, you're able to communicate that, you know, in a healthy way. But sometimes we don't communicate in a healthy way. You know, we're human. None of us are perfect in that. You know, if we don't, then we just able sometimes just have to reflect and be like, I could have said that differently, or I should have done that differently, and then make that adjustment and then move on.
Okay, fellas, so we can't be holding onto our egos when we're trying to figure out what's wrong with us. We have to be okay saying that we need help, you know, and I think that that's the hardest part, is saying, you know what, I think I need help, or you know what, my wife can't do this alone, or I'm going to need to go someplace else to find this. So, I'm so excited. I'm so happy that we had this conversation today. I think it's a conversation that we need to touch on again. Kevin, we loved having you on. I think you're brilliant. Okay. I wish you nothing but success. I don't do that many couples because I don't know, it can just get drama-ish with couples sometimes. But for the couples that definitely need, you know, extra help, I'm gonna be sending them your way, because communication, right? That communication part, that unraveling oneself, that vulnerability needed to be able to unravel, to look in the mirror, to know what's wrong, and then to be even able to say that to a partner, you know, it's all a process. So thank you for being with us. We're so excited. And I wish you nothing but amazing future and accolades and amazing private practice. And Kat, you want to throw anything else in there?
Well, first, Kevin, where can people find you?
Yes.
Okay, you can find me on Instagram at Counseling with Kev, or you can find me to book a consultation, or book a session at impact.vision/Kevin Gibson. That's impact.vision. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say that we're going to have all your links so that people can just click on
impact.vision /Kevin Gibson. And I'm on Facebook, Kevin Gibson. But yeah, like I'm available. Just reach out to me and on email as well. Kevin@impact.vision. Kevin@impact.vision. You can email me, and I usually get back with you within 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours. So if I didn't email you back right away when you send
show him some grace.
I'm wearing many different hats, and so I'm just juggling a lot of that as well. So
definitely. Well, make sure you're taking care of your mental health, and if you're wearing lots, you know,
of course.
definitely.
So something that Kevin said, I am strong enough to know where I am emotionally, physically, spiritually. Identifying that I need help is being strong. And I think that's what I think we want to leave, especially our men, but everybody, because there's so many of us that think that we can just handle it on our own.
Yeah.
And it's okay to know when you need help and to ask for it. That's really where our strength comes in. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. This is definitely the beginning of many more conversations to be had. Guys, you can follow us at Focused@40 on all of our platforms, or focused@40.com. We'll have all of Kevin's information, as well as some supplemental information that Genesis is definitely going to share with you on our blog. And we look forward to next week. We are at the end of our season almost.
Well, I'm glad we're finishing it like this. This is a strong finish.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Happy Tuesday.
Tuesday.